Morgan, it seems like, look, let's be honest, it doesn't seem like it's true that so many people on the left hate America more than they hate China. Is that unfair?
I think that's actually fair to say. A recent poll came out in 2020 from victims of communism that showed that more Americans actually think more people died from Nazi Germany than they have died in communist China. So this goes back to a basic misunderstanding of what's happened throughout history.
Okay, Morgan, how do we change the American education system? I'm an extremist in all things. I just would rather burn the entire thing to the ground and then salt the ground on which it stood. I understand that's probably not reasonable. What's the Morgan solution?
Well, I've been having many conversations. I've gone to DC and I've talked to, the think tanks and the organizations that are known for lobbying. Unfortunately, as conservatives, we're in a bit of a pickle here because we don't believe in top-down approaches. And so we can't just say we need a federal mandate to require certain education in the classroom. And so really the big focus here is either state-level reform, where we could perhaps focus on required education on the horrors of communism. I know in about 11 states have passed similar legislation about the horrors of the Holocaust. And so they require a few days of education for their high school and middle school students, teaching them about the horrors of the Holocaust in order to make sure it doesn't happen again. We could take that kind of legislation, turn it into an anti-communism bill and see if we could get it passed, perhaps in the Republican trifectas. I would say if you want a direct approach, though, many Americans are looking for how they can get involved. I would say get involved with your own school board. I know my kids are not going to public school. I can tell you that right now, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to care about what's happening in my community and how the people, the young kids, the young minds are being trained in my community about the history, economics, and policy behind Marxism, socialism, and communism. So either get involved in the school board or even run for it if you think that there's a problem there.
Morgan, obviously you pointed out you graduated in 2015, so we can reasonably assume you're fairly young, obviously a lot younger than I am. Obviously you have your head on straight somehow. I have parents who email me all the time, worried about their kids, worried about their teenagers right now, worried about what they're learning, and don't know what to do. How did you get like you are?
Well, I'm pretty lucky. My parents never forced one political ideology onto me, but my father is a colonel in the military, and they raised me to at least have a respect for our country, for our founding principles, and for history itself. So I came up with that foundation when I was raised, and they never pushed political views onto me. I came to my views on my own. But what concerns me is I went from upstate New York, where I was born and raised, to Washington, D.C. I went to American University. And there were a ton of different issues on campus, a ton of radical activism that I saw. But the craziest thing I experienced was living with a communist. I had a communist roommate with a poster of Mao Zedong, Lenin, Stalin, Karl Marx, and Fidel Castro on her wall. And when I asked her what it was after I initially introduced myself, she said, "Oh, I'm a communist." And my message to so many of the older Americans who are concerned by this is she's not some evil gulag-style communist. She really does think she's advocating for the working class, and she's seeking justice for the people who are suffering in America. And when she explained to me why she doesn't like conservatism, she said that conservatives say that we care about issues and that we want to help others, but then we don't put government action or government taxpayer dollars behind the things we say we care about. And that all comes down to a battle of messaging, the language that's used. And I think my generation looks at issues and sees caring about something or helping something, solving something with a solution, as putting taxpayer dollars or government action behind it.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.